Hello, welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today will likely be the most hateable video I'll make all year. So get in comments and hate on it. You got my permission. I won't take it personal. You can leave a thumbs down on this one if you really want to. It won't bug me. I understand. People don't like this deck. But it's where we are. It's Spike's Corner. We got to talk about the spikiest decks. We got to talk about the tough decks. And this is the one, blue-white control. So whether you are a player of it or hater of it, you should learn how it works and learn how to attack it. The thing about blue-white control is it is likely the best late-game deck in the format, which means you got to kill it quickly or you have to kill it strategically and smartly and know exactly what you have to remove if you want success against it. We're going to keep this hand. It's a very straight up, decent hand, although the mana is a little awkward. We don't have any dual lands, so there are chances that the mana will go badly. I'll lead on this Plains because I'm likely to cycle this cast out right now, since I also have a Settle and a Disallow. Our opponent's going to open with a Bomat Courier. That is not what we want to see if you are a blue-white player, but if you are a red player, this is a good reason to run the Bomat Courier because it puts pressure on the blue-white deck in terms of card advantage, in terms of damage, in terms of all the things that blue-white decks wish to fight over. Now we're going to play Search for Azcanta and start looking for good draws off the top of the deck. There was a case for playing the River to make sure we had Disallow on time, and maybe that is the right play, but right now this opponent is doing exactly what you want to do. Turn 1 creature, turn 2 creature. Mono red being mono red. So we're in for the classic battle for sure. Gonna keep the seal away on top. Gonna play the Meandering River. Going to seal away the Bomat Courier because we can't have it getting out of hand. And the opponent may just not attack it into a Settle the Wreckage since it has utility when it is on the battlefield without attacking. Once it has a few cards under it, you may just want to leave it at home, draw those cards later, but Earthshaker Kenra needs to attack, and keep attacking. No play from the opponent on 3. That is a very bad sign for our opponent, a very good sign for the blue-white control deck. The pressure pretty much needs to remain constant. Constant pressure. Now we're getting roped as our Search for Azcanta resolves. Perhaps our opponent took a little break. Ooh, a Fumigate. This is a difficult card to keep, especially since we have a Settle the Wreckage. So I'm going to graveyard it. Sends a pretty strong message that our hand is decent to the opponent when you see such a card discarded. And now it's almost certain that we're going to receive a Lightning Strike here. And whether or not to counter this, a shock I would not counter. Lightning Strike, we'll see. No, not a Lightning Strike. And in second, Kenra resolves. And it's curious to see if the opponent attacks with one or both. This is where the blue-white deck is absolutely nasty on turn 4. Do you attack with both your creatures or just one? If you attack with one, Cast Out does it. If you attack with 2, Settle the Wreckage does it. And let's indeed settle them. Now, if our opponent has an Abrade, they might want to shoot down their own Earthshaker Kenra so it's in the graveyard and not exiled, but that play will not happen here. An Earthshaker Kenra can internalize out of the graveyard, but cannot do that out of exile. An Essence Scatter is a good card, I believe, for the situation. Let's see where we're at. 3 cards. We could bin this. Hitting lands and getting to approach the second sun is likely how the game ends, and we already have another counter, so I think I am going to bin it. Again, sending a pretty strong message to our opponent. Our hand must be pretty good if we're just throwing away Fumigate, Set, and Essence Scatter like this. Sunscorched Desert, our opponent going a little old school. I thought that card died with Ramanop Ruins, but apparently not today. Here's a Hazoret the Fervent. We could disallow it, or we could cast it out. If we cast it out, our opponent gets to discard a card and deal 2 damage to us, so I think I'll take the Disallow. It also gets the Disallow into our graveyard, so if we get our Torrential Gearhulk online, we'll be good. I do want this land. Again, let's check the graveyard. You have to do this a lot. Well, with the cast out, whether we play it, if we cycle it, we can flip Azcanta next turn and have Gearhulk available. So I'll take the land and pass the turn, and we'll see if our opponent can make us use this cast out or not. Earthshaker Kenra. Whoa, did anybody see that? That Scorpion just ran through here at record time. Holy crap, I'll have to rewind the video later. I don't know if I've ever seen that. Some of you are laughing at me like, yeah, that's something that always happens. Duh. Alright. This isn't that big of a threat. I think I'm just going to cycle the cast out now and see if I hit a seal away or something like that. It also may make my opponent think that I meant to cast the cast out and misclicked. We could even rope them along with an oops and play mind games. But nah. But yeah, I'm willing to take this damage to flip the search, because then either we play Torrential Gearhulk next turn or Approach of the Second Sun, and either one is very strong, unless our opponent does have that Abrade. I don't think they do, based on how the play went earlier. And we draw a Teferi, so all the win cons together. Now we're on 6, so this card has to be amazing, or it's going in the graveyard. Graveyard. Yep, games take a while on that blue-white. I think most of you know that already. One of the things that infuriates people about the blue-white deck is how long the games take. However, do know I try to play them quickly. I often seem to get more roped by the opponent than anything else, but I know there are plenty of blue-white players who seem to take a very long time on decisions. I don't always play the absolute quickest. There are decisions to be made all along the way, and plenty of distractions, like, say, the camera recording a YouTube video. Opponent with another land, that must be very frustrating for them. And with Disallow and Essence Scatter being the flashback cards, I'm going to take this damage. And our opponent's going to pass the turn, so we'll use the Sunken Ruin, see what we find. And see what we find. Our opponent might be considering bolting us right now, which I wouldn't blame him. Wow. 3 lands into Teferi. Hurry! I have to think that if our opponent had a bolt here, they'd play it, and if they don't, then their cards are completely irrelevant. But I should consider an Abrade, because what cards would they hold in their hand? Land? Maybe. But I have seen them play it out, and I don't think they've drawn that many. So I'm guessing that Abrade is one of the cards. So with that in mind, I'm going to jam this Approach of the Second Sun. It's going to encourage my opponent to play out any threats they might be sandbagging, which then we can walk them into Teferi / Settle the Wreckage. Edzilla has taken to the full-blown roping, I think. It's possible. Maybe the Pure Salt. I did warn you. Probably the most hated deck in the game. You could be trollier than I'm being. You see, we run some Teferi, some Gearhulks, and some Approaches. At least we try to end the game. It's definitely not a requirement for the blue-white player to try to end the game at all. They have inevitability because they can play Teferi, and Teferi can target itself. Meaning it can put itself back into the library so that you can draw it again and again. This means that you never run out of cards, but your opponent will. Therefore, the blue-white deck doesn't actually have to try to win the game. So roping out a Second Sun is kind of funny to me, because you should be grateful that your opponent is, if you have Approach of the Second Sun played against you, it may be annoying, but you should at least be grateful that they care enough about your time and theirs to try to win. I've certainly played the Teferi deck is actually stronger if you cut out Approaches and Gearhulks and just do the Teferi nonsense, because you get to play more reactive spells in the deck instead of cards like Approach of the Second Sun, you can play, say, more removal, more counter spells. And that actually is better for the game plan than tapping out for a 7-mana sorcery like Approach of the Second Sun. So whenever the opponent makes that concession to deck building that they will try to win the game with a card like Approach or Gearhulk, you shouldn't be too upset with them. You should be like, oh good, that means they're not just going to try to deck me with Teferi, which, man, I gotta tell ya, not fun. So after the full rope, the red player is now going to go about business. Another land. Perhaps they did draw all lands, in which case it's a very sad draw for them. And let's see, what are we playing? I guess I should just... Yeah, our opponent knows about the Teferi, so we'll launch the Teferi. And we'll see if I get the full rope for this too. No, it looks like we're moving things along now.
I won't hide from the world any longer.
No, he will not.
Hurry!
Okay. More settles. This is absolutely ridiculous. So we'll mark the Azcanta, mark the island, pass the turn, figure out whether or not we're settling one creature. Probably. At this point, it doesn't really matter anymore. Goblin Trailblazer comes down. Our opponent in love with the 2-mana 2/1s. We saw 3 Earthshaker Kenras. And now a Goblin Trailblazer. That's pretty unusual this day and age in the world of Goblin Chain Whirler. We're going to settle because right now we're so far ahead on cards that exchanging 1 for 1 is totally fine. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't hurt us in any way. And again, exiling the Earthshakers is much better than putting them in the graveyard. So we're 4 down, which means we can go grab it with the Azcanta. No big deal. But yeah, this game is definitely going to end in our favor. I don't think there's a real way out for the opponent. And we'll go ahead and get the Approach into our hand. It does take down the Disallow Torrential Gearhulk shields, but we're just not even going to need it. This game pretty much ended when our opponent couldn't continue to apply pressure after the Settle the Wreckage took out the first 2 Earthshaker Kenras. Being on the play helped a lot. We would have been much lower on life on the draw. And there's a concession, and yep, blue-white doing the blue-white thing. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm a fan of blue-white. Blue-white Control was the first deck I ever won a tournament with, and it was back a long time ago. The win condition was Millstone and Feldon's Cane. Feldon's Cane shuffled the whole deck back, the whole graveyard back into the deck, and then I just waited for my opponent to run out of cards. I also had 2 Millstones to assist with that. I also had 4 Mishra's Factories, which I actually won the final game of that tournament with Mishra's Factory beatdown. It's a land that turns into a creature, but I digress. I have a long-standing good relationship with blue-white control, and it's important to understand that some people really enjoy this type of magic, therefore they'll play it. You don't have to like it yourself, but you have to respect it and work on finding good ways to beat it. So here's the build that I'm using. It's not the strongest in the early game. It can be run over with the right draws and the right decks. However, I can't focus all of my energy and time to early game management because I need to be good against the entire field. There's a lot of mid-range and a lot of control decks, and there are other creatureless control decks. So I can't play, say, a whole bunch of cards like Aether Meltdown, which some versions might. So if I played this, I'd be much stronger in the early game. Same thing with Gideon's Reproach. Don't know if that'll actually come up because I didn't apostrophe. Let's see. There we go. So Gideon's Reproach, another early game card that could be run, or we could run more early game counters that are conditional, such as Censor. However, I find the best build of this deck to have the most overall power. And if you get run over early in the game, whatever, you move on to the next game. And then if you get to like turn 4 or 5, you want to make sure that you have the ability to close the door. I run 4 Sealaways because they're the best thing early, 2 Anticipates because I used to run 27 and then 28 lands, but if I run Anticipate, I can normally find a land if I need it. But in the late game, it can be a spell, and I really like it. It's the only M19 card I'm using. I run 2 Essence Scatters because you don't want 4 Essence Scatters when you play against a creatureless deck or against opponents who are really good and play around it very well. 2 Negates, same philosophy, as Negate plus Teferi is also such a brutal combo. You untap your 2 lands, you counter the Vraska's Contempt, life is good. 2, Search for Azcanta, still one of the best cards in the deck. 4, Disallows, because there just hasn't been another counter this good in a long time, at least not for 3 mana. Run 4 Castouts, 3 Settles, 3 Glimmers, and 2 Fumigates. These are the expensive spells. You have to be careful how many you put in your deck, but these are all pretty high impact, and you love having them. Glimmer in particular goes great with Torrential Gearhulk. Now, for my finishers, I run 2 of each. 2 Teferis, 2 Torrential Gearhulks, 2 Approach of the Second Sun. Why? Well, I've been running into a lot of things that I don't think are necessarily correct for best of 1, like Lost Legacy 4 of main deck, shenanigans like that. So if I were all in on Teferi or Gearhulk or Approach and they got Lost Legacy, I'd probably lose the game. Also, I find that the players are getting more used to blue-white and they know what to counter and what to fight over. Another control deck, for example with black, has 4 Vraska's Contempts and only plays them on Teferi. That's really frustrating. So having like an Approach of the Second Sun that goes right through a Vraska's Contempt can be a big deal, as opposed to having 4 Teferis. Having 2 Gearhulks is really helpful against green. Green in particular seems to walk right into this on the regular, and getting like more Settle the Wreckages and more Glimmers is good against most opponents. So I like the split I've got right now. I was a 4 Teferi person all through the last Dominaria season, but now I've kind of loosened up on it because I hate having a hand with 3 Teferis, something like that, and I get my 5th land and I slam a Teferi and I say go, and my opponent plays Ixalan's Binding, and now I have to wait till I find a cast out or something like that to deal with it, and I've got these Teferis rotting in my hand. If I'm under pressure, it's a really bad place to be. On the mana base, I've got 2 Arch of Orazca and 2 Memorial to Genius to keep the cards coming. I've completely cut Field of Ruin from the deck. I've decided not to... There are so many monocolor decks, like with the green deck and the red deck specifically, but also plenty of people are just playing black. There's a lot of times where Field of Ruin isn't really doing anything, and most decks don't run Search for Azcanta anymore. Those that do, I'm willing to fight over Search for Azcanta in different ways, with cast outs, and things of that nature. But if my opponent does flip into a, let's see, what is it? Into Azcanta the Sunken Ruin, then you just want to fight them on raw cards. And we can fight on raw cards with Memorial to Genius, with Arch of Orazca, with our own Search for Azcanta, Torrential Gearhulk, maybe resolving a Teferi, something like that. Plus we have Glimmers. So I guess I just have to fight a different battle. Search for Azcanta can be an absolute pain in the butt in the mirror, but I'm willing to take that chance the way the meta is now. That's been a longer than normal talk about the deck, mostly because I have a lot of thoughts on blue-white. It's one of the decks that I spend the most time like refining and thinking about, and I like this build that I have right now for the meta. So I guess I'm pretty happy, sort of happy to talk about it. Again, you can throw that hate mail and thumbs down. I get it. I get it. My most hated videos are blue-white control and black-blue Scarab God videos. So I know exactly what I'm getting into. But it wouldn't be Spike's Corner if I didn't work on all the decks. It's important that we learn about our enemies too. See if we just get shocked here. Are we going to play 2 mono reds in a row? It's been a long time, actually, since I've played multiple mono reds in a row. The red meta has certainly taken a breather, which is lovely to see, but that also can mean that blue-white is stronger, as red is, I would call it the most natural predator, the deck that has the most potential to get you dead before you get to do your blue-white things. This red opponent, though, I'm guessing some kind of a mid-range dragon situation, because they are taking it very slow. We can tell they have a lightning strike or a shock in their hand because of the clicking through the turn, but my goodness, I'm guessing that for 5 mana we might see a Glorybringer or a Demanding Dragon, something like that. Another Fumigate, 2 Glimmers. I'm really glad our opponent had a slow starter. This hand would be in a lot of trouble. So the more the meta slows down, the more that they play mid-range and other control decks, I think the better blue-white gets. There's just no doubt that it's very, very strong if given time. There's a Goblin Chain Whirler. That's fine. Not a lot I can do about that. Dude, I saw the Scorpion again. This is really fast. Like, who Somebody made these scorpions super fast. Maybe they've been doing this the whole time and I'm just so zoned in I don't even notice. Maybe my peripherals are going. I am getting old. Glimmer of Genius? What do we find? I don't need another land, but a search for Azcanta is a very interesting one here. I don't know that I actually need it. I have an empty graveyard. I have 2 Glimmers of Genius. I have an Arch of Orazca. So I'm not going to take it. I actually don't think I need it at all. All right, so we'll put those on the bottom and draw these. And, well, more land, but at least we're getting through them. Oh my. Maybe I spoke too soon. All right, play our Memorial to Genius. We've got too many cards in our hand because we haven't made enough plays, but I definitely have a discard I'm happy with. Another Plains. Here comes the beats. I'm going to take this bump. I've decided it's not worth it to me to seal away here unless our opponent goes in on some pump spells or something ridiculous. I'd rather Glimmer again and keep working on my hand, as we don't have enough action yet. And our opponent's just passing the turn. They might have a lot of burn in hand. We'll have to keep that in mind. We don't want to take too many hits. There we go. Well, that's what you want to see. That's what you want to see when you're in this type of a scrap. So is that, but we're going to take a turn and clean the board first. With this seal away, we can play it main phase so we don't have to discard. We could have played Teferi, used its +1, untapped, and still held up Seal Away or Disallow, but I want to Seal Away and Disallow right now, not either or. It means that Teferi is better protected. The situation, I'm guessing, is that our opponent might have 2 Lightning Strikes, maybe even more than that, to go right after Teferi. Another Sunscorched Desert player. This is not the same person. The last one's name was Eddie, so... Or Edzilla, that's what it was. Ooh... So our opponent discards a land and plays Tormenting Voice, which could draw 2 cards. I think I'm going to let it resolve. I could counter it, but it's like if that were a Cathartic Reunion and they discarded 2 cards and it was 3 cards, I probably would. But Tormenting Voice doesn't scare me enough. All right, so we can play this, and again, we won't have the mana up until after the untap step. I think right now I'm perfectly fine waiting. There is nothing wrong with being patient with this deck. I can't stress that enough. If you are going to be a blue-white player, the mistake I see most often is impatient blue-white players who, you know, run Teferi right out on turn 5 or Scarab God for blue-black right out on turn 5, no matter what the circumstance. Not the way you need to do it. And I don't need to sacrifice this Memorial either. We have 7 cards in our hand. We'd probably have to discard 1. And we're going to want that land because we're about to unleash the Teferi. So I think I can get City's Blessing this turn, so I'll play the Arch. And now we'll deploy Teferi with Disallow protection. So if our opponent points 2 Lightning Strikes, they'll have to have a 3rd one. And at that point, the exchange rate is very good.
You'll
and
thank me later.
We locked in the City's Blessing with 10 permanents.
Hold that thought.
And let the grind begin. Opponent lets this resolve. Interesting. So the Lightning Strikes don't appear to be there. Insult. I think I just have to counter this. I think it's just better. As the aftermath part would have to be countered anyway. Although there's not a creature right now. I wonder, would most of you counter the insult? Especially with our opponent with so many cards in hand, it feels like they could just do a burn flurry if we let it resolve, and if we only had 1 counter spell, it would probably go poorly. Seems like the right play.
We need to move quickly.
Okay. Anything to do with my turn my turn. Anything to do with my mana? It looks like I can play this Anticipate right now. Now there's a search for Azcanta, but I still don't feel I need the cards from the search. I'll take the Negate instead. I have plenty of ways to get more cards like Arch of Orazca and Memorial to Genius and Teferi. So more cards isn't quite the answer. We still don't even have enough cards to flip the search right away. So even a great card like Search for Azcanta, it's important to evaluate in the context of the game. Some people, I think their head explodes when you talk about putting certain cards on the bottom with the scry. You have to be able to evaluate every card based on what the situation is now. The best cards are the cards that, no matter the situation, are usually cards you want to play. Let's negate that, since we know it can target that, and Disallow can target just about anything. So it does appear that perhaps we're up against an insult to injury burn deck. So the key flaw in the plan, of course, is that they have to be able to cast the insult to injury. So let's keep fighting over it. All right, cast out off the top. Not a lot to do with our mana on our turn. Let's see what we find here.
You know what? I'm not done yet.
Okay, well, we found something. It is Approach of the Second Sun. Let's tap you for colorless, tap you for blue. Let's play this and try to get way ahead of that life total. Something I do sort of quietly, I don't vocalize it on the videos, that's very important that you do too, is count your mana each turn. It's no accident that I have 3 mana left over when I play Approach there, and that I played an untapped land instead of my tapped land. It's definitely something you want to consider every single turn, is how much mana you have. In fact, it's probably something you should check at the beginning of every turn, is how much mana you have. And our opponent's going to scoop them right up. All right, let's check our video time. I know blue-white can take a while. Oh, we're at 27 minutes. We've got 2 wins, and I'm sure that playing blue-white over and over isn't the most stimulating thing, so I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to thank you very much for watching. If you are a blue control mage, sound off what you like about blue control. And if you hate it, do what you got to do. Just please don't attack other people in the comments. You're welcome to leave your own comment about why you don't like this blue-white control, what makes you angry about it. But please don't jump on like a comment of somebody saying I play control and this is what I like about it, and attack them. Have your opinion, don't attack the opinion of others. Good life philosophy, just saying. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate all of you. In the description, you can find a link to my Discord and links to my Twitch if you want to check those out. Other ways to stay in touch with me. And if you liked the video or hated the video, make sure you hit the thumbs, the ups or the downs. You can also subscribe if you want to see my latest videos. You can hit the little bell thing if you want to know exactly when they go live. Thank you very much for watching this video. This has been me, CGB. It's been another day in the arena, and I'll be back for the next one. Later.